games.
Maybe. Welcome to AV Rant. We're behind the scenes. Behind the scenes means things might not go smoothly. You know, it might be audio dropouts, video dropouts. Might not be able to see the images we're talking about. Who knows? But that's because it's behind the scenes. And we're just putting it up live because we got to see each other anyway. So yeah, if you would like the cleaned up version, at least the audio for sure will be cleaned up.
Who's Anonymous Llama?
That's you.
No.
Yeah.
What?
You're both.
How?
Tom's talking about our Google Doc. But it's both of them.
How can I be an anonymous llama?
I don't know. You didn't log out of one of them. You're both. The llama's like dimmed, so.
Oh, it's just open on the other computer then, I guess.
Something like that. It's kind of amazing things you get behind the scenes. Yeah, if you'd like the cleaned up version, look for the completed video version. I'm posting it under the name AV Rant Home Theater Q&A Podcast these days with the episode numbers. So, yeah, I think that's about it. I'll switch over to Tom. He can begin when he pleases.
All right. Welcome to another edition of AV Rant. I'm Tom Andry, and I'm here with
Rob H. This is AV Rant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. I'm still waiting for my receiver update. Apparently some people who have 2015 Denon receivers got the Dolby Vision pass-through update, but I have a Marantz, an SR7010 from 2015. I'm still waiting for my update. Hopefully it'll come soon. I would like to not have two HDMI cables running from my Oppo player to one directly to my TV and one directly to my AV receiver for audio only. I'd like to just have one cable.
Sure.
Yep.
That's cool.
That's as of right now. By the time you hear this, hopefully things have changed for me.
Right. All right, so we're going to talk real quick about the BenQ EW3270U.
Okay.
It's a monitor.
A computer monitor, right?
Yes, 4K computer monitor with HDR and all that jazz. Supposed to be real good for gaming. It's 32 inches, so I was sitting about 2.5 inches from it. It was very big. But, okay, so gaming. My son, I didn't do any gaming on it, but my son did. He did a ton of gaming on it. And we have a different monitor. It's a 75 hertz or 144 or one of those. It's a 27-inch Asus.
Okay.
And he thought that the Asus was a little clearer, though I think what he's talking about is you don't have to turn your head to see one side of the screen versus the other.
Right.
So the BenQ was much easier to set up than some of the other computer monitors I've worked with, which out of the box looked really bad. This out of the box looks very good. It's got speakers, which I was kind of surprised by that it's got any speakers at all, but it does have speakers, which I did utilize, and they sounded fine. I suppose. They have all the color correction you probably would need. It's got an HDR and a simulated HDR mode.
Right.
So you can simulate HDR. And it's also got like this, what's called BI, which is blue.
Black frame insertion?
No, it's blue. It has something to do with the color blue, and then I can't remember what that stands for. But it's basically, it's like a light sensor.
Okay.
So it changes. It's like eye protection. It changes the brightness based on what's going on in the room and that sort of thing. So you're not getting blasted at night. Right. I, of course, turn that immediately off.
Yeah, because that messes up your color temperature.
Yeah, so that never used that at all. Though I did have it on some, and I was like, oh, well, that's what it does, and turned it off. The simulated HDR was fine. It seemed to just overblow everything. So I turned that off as well. I did hook up my Blu-ray player to it to see how HDR actually looked. It looks real good. I mean, I was very surprised how good it looked. Because the one thing I complain about the original Jurassic Park movie in Ultra HD is I don't have it. I'm using SDR in here,
right?
And the dinosaurs look real fake.
Okay.
So this cleaned all that up. There's a lot more detail. There was a ton of detail I hadn't noticed before, like in the textures on the, like I watched that scene where the Brontosaurus thingy, Brachiosaurus, stands up at the very beginning, because that's the one that looked as fake as anything else I had seen in this movie.
Right.
That was the bad one. So I watched that scene. Dinosaur looked better. There was a lot of texture and stuff in the car and on the pads and stuff around the car that I had never noticed before. Now, of course, I am again sitting about 2.5 inches from a 32-inch monitor.
You will be seeing 4K. More detail just by the virtue of that. Yes.
But, you know, I really liked it. It doesn't have a swivel. It doesn't swivel left and right. From what I could tell, it does tilt pan up and down really well. and it had quite a bit of movement there, so that was good. Overall, I think it's like a $600 monitor, which seems to be about right. You know, if you look at the 32-inch 4K gaming monitors, this one is in the ballpark of all the rest of them. You can find cheaper, but it's usually some brand you've never heard of. So, you know, overall, I really liked it. I thought it was a great monitor. I'm sad to see it gone. It is, I mean, going from that monitor. Now, the Asus is not so bad, but that monitor with the text being about the same size as what was on my other, I have two other 1080p displays, an AOC one and this Asus. Yeah, the clarity difference is just it's not even close. Now, this is just a virtual of it being 4K too. This has nothing to do with it being an amazing monitor, but that ability to have that text be that small and it's just perfectly readable. And the minute I put back the 1080p display in there, I was like, why does everything look crappy? I had to reset everything, and then I blew the text up a little bit so that it wasn't quite so. I mean, it was like it was like stair step almost. I mean, it wasn't quite stair step, but you know what I mean. It was pretty blurry. So we fixed that up. But I mean, if you're looking for a 1080p, a 4K
HDR
compatible, yes, monitor. This is well, it has HDR mode on it, so I mean, it's compatible.
Well, we're just not sure how many nits. I'm sure it doesn't get 1,000 because.
No, I hope not.
Be highly unlikely.
Yeah, but it was real good. I mean, and I was looking at my son. I was watching. He plays Overwatch. I was watching over his shoulder as he's playing, you know, on both monitors. And I mean, to me, they looked pretty similar. Though I have the FreeSync on. I had the FreeSync on the new one. I mean, on my monitor, but not on the BenQ because I never got around to turning it on. I don't think. Maybe I did. I don't know. But they both look very good. But I wish I still had it. How about that?
Okay. Well, there you go. You can't get a more positive review than that.
I wish I didn't have to send it back. I was really hoping. I was one of those things. I'm like, ooh, I hope they don't ask for it back. She's been asking for it back since she was like, hey. I just sent her an email. She's like, did you send it on Friday like you're supposed to? I was like, oh, nope, sent it today. So it is in the mail on the way back. So I'm excited about that. All right, this is AV Rant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. To get your questions answered, all you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us a question at avrant.com. Go to www.avrant.com and leave us a comment there. Maybe if it's not broken, I don't know, it might be broken. But hit us up on Facebook at facebook.com/AVRant podcast, youtube.com/AVRant, where you can see videos and comment on videos, and we will ignore your comments.
Yep. You can also see the times for each person's questions if you wait until Thursday, because that's when I put that up.
Right. Let's see. You contact Rob directly, rob@avrant.com. Your Twitter is at FirstReflect. Mine's Tom at avrant.com. My Twitter is at avrant_Tom. So that's that.
Yes.
All right. So listen, we want to thank our listeners of the week. Listeners of the week are people who support the podcast in some way. One way you can support the podcast is financially. You can do that by going to patreon.com/AVRant podcast, right?
Correct. AVRant podcast, all one word.
Why did I not make the YouTube channel AVRant podcast? Why are all the other things AVRant podcast? I got to remember which one is just AVRant. I don't know.
Only YouTube.
I am dumb. So Patreon, we now have 65 patrons.
Yeah.
Patreon is a service where you can sign up for a monthly subscription fee. That's not a fee, donation to our podcast to help support us and support our hosting fees. So we want to thank our 65 patrons, including Brandon and Patrick, who reminded us that we need to update the banner image to our new 600 logo instead of our 500 logo, which I have done. So it is done.
Thank you, I saw that. Yes. I'll take any opportunity to show that 600 logo. And thank you, Ash, once again for making that for us. And thanks so much to our 65 patrons, Brandon W., Patrick P. Thank you for being two of them.
Yes. All right. In the news this week, we've got screenwriter John August thought it was crazy when he discovered there is nowhere online to stream, rent, or purchase a downloadable version of the movie Cocoon.
Right.
You can't even buy it from Amazon. Come on.
You can't even buy it on iTunes of all places. Like, what? I know. That's why he was like, this is nuts.
How's that even possible?
I could see it not being on like free for streaming or not on Netflix. All those things make sense. But when you can't even buy it on iTunes or Amazon, that's unusual, or Google Play or anywhere else. Can't get it anywhere online.
That's crazy.
That's what he thought.
I mean, not even like the weirdo Kaleidoscape, whatever it is.
Kaleidoscape. Service? I don't know about them.
Anyways, all right.
I don't know.
So he started a public list to track mainstream movies that should be available to legally watch online but aren't.
That's the title he gave it.
That rolls off. Screenwriter, is he? He doesn't want to get the list to get completely under control. So the rules are only tracking English language movies because English is the best. Released from 1980 to 2016, that were in the top 100 for the U.S. domestic box office, according to BoxOfficeMojo.com. Was he have like a stake in Box Office Mojo? Anyways.
No, well, and that's where everybody goes to look at box office info.
I don't know. And he's helpfully provided a link to justwatch.com where you can double check if any online service is offering the movie. Well, that is, it was supposed to be that you were supposed to be able to ask Amazon, right? You got the little Fire Stick, and it was like that. We talked about this many years ago, and they tried to kind of do this, and you're like, you ask the thing like, I want to watch this movie, and it's like, these are your options.
Roku does that too, where it's like a universal search they're trying to do.
Yeah, but the idea that it's not available at all, it just boggles my mind. You know what? Okay, and this gets me about Amazon too. I want to talk about Amazon Prime for a second. First of all, it sucks, but the
streaming shipping, movie stuff. Yeah, the free shipping is fine.
Free shipping, I love. I'm all about that. I'm all about that lifestyle, and I love I would have it even once I got Amazon Prime. Once I got it for a month or whatever, I was like, we're never giving this up.
Right. Yeah.
It's just too convenient. Honestly, in the end, I think it saves me money. I don't know how much, but it does, because I get like $26 worth of stuff, and then it's like, nope, you need 35. I'm like, all right, who wants a book? Who's got a book they want to buy? That sort of thing. So I think in the end it saves me money, but I hate that Amazon Prime streaming, when you search for a movie, is like, yeah, we got it. And you're like, awesome, and you click on it, they're like, you can buy it for $16.99. I'm like,
available to purchase or
your mind. I did not rent, I did not get the service to buy your stupid movies. All right, I got the movie. Don't tell me that it's, put it in a completely different column. Like you could stream. These are the things you like do what Netflix does. It's like, like if you search for a movie, and the little thing, it'll say, oh, are you looking for whatever it was, Superstar, whatever. What's that one? Pop Star, whatever. Pop Star. Yeah. I was trying to. My wife loves Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I was trying to show that movie to her, and it's like, you like Pop Star? It's something like Pop Star, and all these other things come up. You're like, oh, they don't have it. See, I know that they don't have it.
Yeah,
but no, Amazon, they're like, oh yeah, we got it. Psych. All right, the Oscars have a new award category: Outstanding Achievement in Popular Film.
Yes.
Yeah, that's okay. Okay, this is going to be a rant episode. It's going to be one of those. It's in the first new category to be added since 2001, when the Best Animated Film Award was added. Hey, guess what? Old people who run that stupid organization. Animated films are films. Popular films are films, and you separate. You know what? Why don't you guys have a things no one wants to watch but us category, and then Best Movie of the Year? Right. Okay, right. That's what you need to have. You don't need to have. You don't just keep splitting off things. You're like, oh, that's I was listening to this guy on the radio, and he's like, he was completely 100% like, he's like, I hate Star Wars.
Okay,
I'm like, what? Why? He's like, oh, I went to film school, and that the stuff's just beneath me. I'm like, you sir are. You're trolling, right? You have to be trolling, because this can't be an actual.
It only literally changed culture. Yeah, in North America.
Really. Well, the impact on everybody who lives in this country, and many people who live in other countries, is just it's indescribable. But no, that's beneath me.
Well, I mean, you're certainly allowed to for it to not be your cup of tea, but
oh yeah. But
as a film connoisseur, it's a very important series. I mean, this achievement in popular film, I mean, this should just be called we know we need to give Black Panther an Oscar, because that's what this category is.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing though. Why can't Black Panther just be nominated for Best Picture of the Year?
Right.
That was the whole reason they expanded from 5 nominees to 10, because everyone was upset that The Dark Knight never got nominated for Best Picture, and people were like, it deserves to be nominated for Best Picture. Like, well, if we had more than 5, we could. But then they've never used the extra slots for that. They've never done it. And again,
more things about billboards or whatever that stupid movie was called.
Oh yeah,
and it's like literally, you could look at the Oscar list like things I will never watch. a heartwarming tale of things I will never watch. It's just never going to happen.
You could just nominate Black Panther. It doesn't necessarily have to win, but you could nominate it as Best Picture. But like, it's them saying, we don't think anything that's superhero related could possibly have artistic merit. It's like, well, why not? There are good movies.
I'm gonna be honest with you. Dark Knight absolutely 100% needed to be on that list. I don't think Black Panther was that great. I mean, I think it was a fine movie, but it was just to me. I mean,
but you know that's what this is for.
Oh, absolutely, it's 100% what it's for. Yeah, but I mean, it's almost like things we have to nominate for political reasons,
right?
You know, versus everything else. I'm like,
I love there was a guy on I forget who it was on Twitter, but he's like, I just want them to not only nominate but have The Last Jedi win, just so like half the fan base can explode.
I'm gonna be honest with you. Last Jedi is we're never gonna get into the questions of this podcast. You people have just got to wait till next week. This is gonna be a little bit of talking podcast this week. We should do that. We should just start talking about AV stuff and get.
That's what the old AV Rant used to be.
That's right. No, we The Last Jedi has been on Netflix. I have been watching it like over and over. That movie is so amazing. I love that movie so much. I'm like, listen, if you people, and I'm talking to the internet, not you people who are listening to this podcast, you're all brilliant. But if you people had social media when The Empire Strikes Back came out,
oh yeah,
it would have been so much worse. The arguments, I could hear people walking out of the theater arguing with each other. It was a lie. It's not really his father. Of course it's his father. Why would he lie? Oh, that movie's such a downer. I hate this movie. What's everybody's, oh, it's the best. It's the best because you know the conclusion. It wasn't the best for like the 7 years between the two movies, right? Or whatever it was. I don't remember. It seemed like a long time, but it was
3 years.
Yeah, that's a long time. You have to wait like 1 year to figure out what happens with this one. You know? So anyways, I really like that movie. Jedi should get it. I like Panther. I like Black Panther. That was a fine movie. I've seen it a couple times now.
If you were betting in Vegas on what movie is going to win popular film, if you do,
it's 100%.
All your money on Black Panther.
Well, you know what I would love? I would love. We need Thor Ragnarok to win best comedy.
Well, they don't separate categories in Oscars, so yeah. No, interesting that they're essentially bringing in a People's Choice Award. That's what this might as well be, but only for one category. I don't know. Do whatever you want. I really don't care what the Oscars do. So
I haven't watched the Oscars in forever. I have the ability to watch the Oscars, and I am not going to watch it. You know how you get me to watch the Oscars? Have Super Bowl like commercials, and I'll watch the Oscars again. That's your only shot of getting me to watch the Oscars. They're going to have a new trailer for the next.
They really should promote trailers, but I guess since they're airing in February, summer movies are months away, I guess.
All right, comments for listeners. Infinite Gary just wanted to share a purchasing tip. Some credit cards offer price protection for a certain period of time. He found a lower price on a disc player he had purchased a few months ago. He sent his credit card company proof, and they gave him back the difference in price. How do they get their money back? I guess they expect people not to ever take advantage of it. So he says it's not a bad idea to check what features and rewards are available on your cards. All right.
If it's already part of your card, why not?
I guess so. Max. All right, this first question might be the only question, depending on how off topic I decide to go tonight. I haven't even had a drink. I was gonna usually have a beer with dinner. I didn't even have a beer with dinner tonight. I'm in a mood. Max's room apparently has a strong bass mode right on 63 hertz. In his primary seat, he gets a strong dip, and a few feet away in a different seat, he gets a peak. At first, the dip at his primary seat was about 25 dB, but moving the subwoofer to a different location in this room got it down to about 10 dB. He tried flipping the polarity switch on the subwoofer, but that did not improve things any further. He hoped that reversing the polarity might result in the peak being at his primary seat, while the dip would be at the other seat a few feet away, but that didn't happen. Why not? That's a good question, but I mean, the reality is that the cancellation still happens the same way. It's just,
right. What you have to picture in your mind is a wave pattern.
Yeah.
And that wave pattern is forming because the sound wave originates at your subwoofer, comes out of your subwoofer, travels across your room. We're going to simplify it, overly simplify it, but imagine that it goes across your room, bounces off of the wall that's opposite where the subwoofer is, and comes back. Yeah. And doubles back on itself. And your primary
the subwoofer to the wall is really more of an in between the walls too.
Yeah, it was the distance between the two walls, because the distance between your two walls is going to equal half the wavelength of some frequency.
Right.
It's guaranteed. Some frequency is going to be half the wavelength of that. And when that happens, or I shouldn't say exactly half. I didn't work out exactly what
Don't worry about that.
percentage of the wavelength, but whatever it is going to be, the wavelength is going to evenly fit.
If it was exact, it would be a complete null. It's not a complete null. It's only a
That's right. So, but regardless, the wave's going across the room, bouncing off of the wall opposite, coming back, and doubling up on itself. And some of the places where it doubles up, it's going to be I'm going up when I'm going forward, and I'm going up as I'm coming back in the same spot, and that doubles it up, and you get a big peak. Or it's going to be I'm going up as I go forward, but I'm going down as I come back, and we cancel each other out. You end up with nothing right in that spot. And it doesn't matter if... So reversing the polarity, in that example, I said, okay, it's going up when it's going forward, it's going down when it's coming back. Well, if it's going down when it's going forward and going up when it's coming back, which is what happened when you reverse the polarity, it's still a cancellation in that spot. It didn't turn it into a peak, because the reason it's up going forward and down going back, or down going forward and up going back, is because it bounced off of the wall. And you didn't change the wall. You just changed whether it's an up going forward or a down going forward, but it's still going to be the reverse of that on the way back. You're still going to get a cancellation in the same spot. So that's why the polarity didn't make a difference. We
visualize this as an up, that line, that up and down line, right? But that's not really how it works.
No, not in
waves.
air.
No. Waves don't work that way. What they do is they compress the air together, and then the air goes back to its original shape, as it goes through. So that compression is what's happening. So if there's double compression happening, it's up. If it's double cancel the other way, then it's not. So it's just not the same. The question I have is, why don't you have another sub? Because it sounds like he's only got one.
Well, exactly. I mean, the only way to fix this is you could move your seat, and then you will end up in some other wave pattern that you might end up in a horrible peak, or you might end up in another null. But you could move your seat. You already tried moving the subwoofer around, and that slightly altered things. I'm guessing that your room is not a perfect rectangle. Yeah. Because if it were a perfect rectangle, that ought not to happen. But most rooms are not perfect. Even if they look like perfect rectangles, they're not actually perfect rectangles, because it's pretty hard to build a perfectly smooth flat wall. So that's the reason why moving the subwoofer was able to make some difference there. But yeah, the only way to... Well, let's see, you can't completely get rid of the cancellation, but you can add another sound source that is then producing a third and fourth wave in that spot, which could fix that. And you could do that with a second subwoofer, or something we'll talk about that coming up next.
So he's planning on getting a Dirac unit from an DSP. Since he managed to get the dip down from 25 to 10, will Dirac be able to correct for the remaining smaller dip? Well, this is the thing. If you had said peak, I would say yes.
Sure. Yeah, because you can always cut down a peak.
You can. It's very, very difficult to deal with a null. And the reason is because no matter how much extra sound you put out, no matter how much you boost those frequencies, it just keeps canceling itself out.
Keeps canceling, yeah.
So there's really not a lot you can do.
Yeah, now it sounds like this is not a 100% cancellation, again, because your room is probably not a perfect rectangle, which means theoretically you might be able to boost the signal enough to get rid of the -10, but that might require so much amplifier power.
Right.
Or... the other problem is, as you are boosting to try and fix that -10 at your primary seat, it is boosting the other seat that you said is a couple feet away that's already getting a peak. That seat could become deafeningly loud. Because it's not going to be that you just turn up the signal 10 decibels at 63 hertz and that's going to fix it. No, it's going to have to be some exponential amount more than that, because the waves are still canceling each other out there. Not entirely, so eventually you could brute force your way over it if you had enough amplifier power.
But then think about what else you're doing. I mean, first of all, you're risking your subwoofer.
Yeah.
When you do this, you're risking damaging or other things happening to it,
or damaging the hearing of the person in that other seat where it's a peak.
And then outside of this room as well. I mean, this subwoofer is now playing. Let's just say it's just 10 decibels that you had to boost this thing, and that magically worked. It's now playing 10 decibels louder at that frequency. That outside this room, there's these nulls and stuff aren't going to be nearly as apparent, but they will notice that all the dishes are shaking in the kitchen and stuff like that. So this is something that you really have to treat by treating the room. Now, there's two things you can do. You get another sub,
right,
and place them in opposite corners, and that will help even out your bass. Or you can start putting bass traps in here. So if you've got some
and
bass,
since you have a very specific frequency that's causing this, you can use what's called a tuned bass trap. We like the ones that GIK Acoustic sells. They call it their Scopus bass trap. And so usually the ones they make, the standard one is 2 feet by 2 feet and then about 8 inches thick. The one that goes even lower is thicker than that. The one that doesn't hit around 70 hertz is a little bit thinner, but you're looking at about 7.5, 8 inches in depth. And there's actually a flexible membrane in there as well as some damping material so that the membrane doesn't just keep shaking. And that will resonate right at that frequency. You can, in fact, contact GIK and have them make one that is for your exact it's 63. They can build you one that will target 63 exactly.
Right.
And then they have some outer coverings, so you can add diffusion on top of it, add fabric on top of it. You can even put a printed image on there. So if a second subwoofer simply will not fit in your room, you still can find a solution with a tuned bass trap like this. It's big, but it's not as big as an entirely second subwoofer.
That said, I am going to say that I do not believe that 63 is your only problem in this room. I'm going to say
you'll have the harmonic.
The 63, well, the 63 is the biggest problem in your room, for sure, because you're noticing it. But I'm guessing, let's just say that you get this tuned bass trap, you're like, woo, fixed it, and you're like, oh, wait a second, there's also these other issues I'm having in this room. I would recommend, before getting this tuned trap, I would recommend getting, the tri-traps that go in the corners. Start putting some absorption in this room.
60 though. 60. I mean, it's tough to get a passive bass trap thick enough to have an effect down at 63 hertz.
No, I hear you, but I think that if you start putting some absorption in this room, some treatments in this room to sort of even out the rest of the room, then he'll know for sure that 63 is in fact, that has made not enough difference. But then when he puts that one bass trap in there, he's gonna, if he just does that and there's nothing else, like, we don't know what this room looks like. It could be bare walls and a single wooden chair in the center of it. He puts this one bass trap in there. He's like, okay, well, 63 is fixed, but now I'm noticing all these other things. But
interestingly, if you put the second sub, that can fix your bass problems as long as it's carefully placed and then phase set up. Yeah.
So how much money you got, bud? We can help you spend it. Grant in New Zealand. Grant has a 7.1.4 setup. He uses his Xbox One S to stream Netflix so he can listen to Dolby Atmos Netflix titles. When he sets up his Xbox One S to HDMI audio out bitstream and chooses Dolby Atmos as the bitstream type, titles that are Dolby Atmos on Netflix work just fine. But for all of the Netflix content that is set 5.1, his AV receiver still says the audio signal is Atmos, even though it clearly isn't. Worst of all, his surround speakers are silent, while his surround back speakers play the sounds that are supposed to be coming out of his side surrounds.
Yes.
He can work around this by going back into the Xbox One S settings and telling it to either output uncompressed 5.1 or still selecting bitstream out, but setting the bitstream type to Dolby Digital instead of Atmos. But it's annoying to have to manually switch back and forth like that. First of all, Grant, welcome to the podcast. It's nice to have new listeners. I know you're a new listener because I have had this problem and have been complaining about it for about 2 years. So welcome to the podcast. It's nice to have you. New Zealand's a lovely country that I have not been to, but my wife has. She did a canoeing thing or whatever, kayaking thing down to a glacier or something. I don't know. I wasn't there. All right, it's like a 4-day thing. I don't know. She said it was amazing. So his first question, why can't the Xbox One S bitstream out 5.1 when the Netflix title is in 5.1 and then automatically switch to sending out Atmos when the title is in Atmos? It can. It certainly has the ability to do it. It has the power.
Right, yes.
It has
the hardware is capable of doing that because it does that with physical Blu-ray discs. And it switches between.
Grant, I want to let you know that this is coming from the heart. It's because Microsoft hates you. That is why. Doesn't hate anybody else, just you. Because I really feel that to be the case with myself. Like when I am walking to, because my bathroom's the door is the back of my home theater. So when I'm watching Netflix and I'm not really paying attention, and I walk past my surround back speakers and they're blaring, I'm like, oh, just shut up, both of you, just shut up back here. Yep. You're not supposed to be making any noise whatsoever. You stupid pieces of garbage.
Right. So yeah, I mean the technical reason of why this is happening is because what the Xbox is doing for everything other than physical movie discs, so DVDs, Blu-rays, Ultra HD Blu-rays, you can select that setting that is only in the disc settings menu, right? It's not in the audio output settings menu. It's in the disc settings menu that says, let my AV receiver handle the audio. And then it just outputs the bitstream audio straight off of the disc, whatever format that might be that's on the disc, and it does exactly what you want it to do. Yeah. But then you don't get any notification sounds, which to me is a plus. I don't want notification sounds when I'm watching a movie off of a physical disc. But any system sounds, notification sounds, all that stuff is silent because it's just bitstreaming the audio straight off of the disc. Now, for everything else, what the Xbox is programmed to do is to decode the audio, whatever that format might be. So from games, from streaming services, from its own menus and that, it decodes the audio internally. So everything becomes PCM inside of the Xbox One. Then when you're selecting what bitstream output you want to use, it's actually running all the audio through an encoder. It's encoding the audio, so that's why you can say, turn everything into Dolby Digital, or turn everything into DTS, or now turn everything into Atmos. Now, it's not really Atmos. You said yourself, right? Your surround speakers are sitting there silent, so clearly it's not making use of all of your speakers. It's just encoding it as an Atmos signal, so your AV receiver goes, okay, I'm getting an Atmos signal, I'll go into my Atmos mode and play this as Atmos, but it's not actually doing any like manipulation, upmixing of the signals. So that's a technical reason why, but it doesn't explain why they don't give you the option.
Incorrectly encoding it.
Well, that's the second. That's the next question, right?
Yeah, incorrectly encoding the side surrounds into the surround backs.
Yeah.
So he asks if if he resigns himself to manually switching between audio output settings, is it better to use the uncompressed 5.1 setting or the Dolby Digital bitstream setting? He tried both and couldn't really hear a difference. And on his particular AV receiver, the Dolby Surround Upmixer works on the Dolby Digital bitstream, but not the uncompressed 5.1 PCM. Now, on those occasions when he feels like, he'd like to have an up mix. So I usually said that if I'm going to do this, which I've given up. Microsoft has broken me. I've tried. I tried to fight the good fight, Grant, and you soldier on, sir. I'm with you in spirit, but you're going to have to leave me bleeding on the battlefield because I have given up. I stopped switching. I used to switch all the time. I switched to 5.1 uncompressed because I wanted the uncompressed. Now, the reality is that the signal you're getting is not uncompressed to begin with. It's already compressed by Netflix.
Right. So you were getting, say, a Dolby Digital Plus, which is a lossy bitstream coming from Netflix. Your Xbox One is decoding that into PCM. If you set it to output uncompressed 5.1 PCM, that is where the things stop. It is said, okay, I've decoded it. It is now PCM, and I send it to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why
if you select Dolby Digital as the bitstream output, it will say, okay, now it's PCM. Now I'm going to re-encode it again, which means more loss, additional loss. So it was already lossy, then it got decoded into PCM, then it got re-encoded through another lossy process. So a little bit more has been lost. But you said you're listening to it, you don't really hear a difference, and I'm the same way.
I'm there too.
Dolby Digital is pretty good. It's pretty good. And from a streaming service, you're not really going to notice the difference. On his particular AV receiver, you're able to upmix Dolby Digital. You're not able to upmix uncompressed PCM. So to me, that answers the question. Go ahead and set it as Dolby Digital if this is what you're going to do, because then you can do what you want to do, and you didn't notice a quality loss. So who cares? That's all that matters.
Right. So he asks, is there a streaming device that will handle Netflix audio better?
Amazingly, no, not right this second. The Apple TV 4K, we definitely expect that it will. Although, as I said last week, I have my suspicion that the Apple TV 4K is going to do the exact same thing that the Xbox One is doing, which is it will decode everything internally and then re-encode everything as Atmos. If you select, I don't know for sure.
If they did
my
that
suspicion
and just put the surrounds in the surrounds,
Right. Good enough.
I think at this point I'm like I've got like abused child syndrome or something like that, where I'm like, I'll just take that. That's
Right.
good enough for me. I've already given up the hope of ever you just giving me the thing that you got.
Yes.
Like, why do you have to play with it? Stop playing with it. Just pass it. Like, don't.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping the Apple TV 4K will just output the bitstream that came from the source. That's what I'm hoping they do. But the reason I suspect they might do the decoding and re-encoding is because right now they are decoding everything internally. If you set your Apple TV 4K to output Dolby Digital instead of uncompressed 7.1, it's doing the same thing the Xbox is doing right now. It's decoding everything inside and then re-encoding it as Dolby Digital. It's not just sending out Dolby Digital if that's what the source was. So that's why I suspect the Apple TV 4K will do the same thing. So the only devices that handle Netflix audio completely properly, including getting you Atmos, is an LG OLED via HDMI ARC. Like, right this... Well, the other one that could do it would be a Windows PC. Which running the Windows Netflix app.
Why the NVIDIA Shield can't do it? Because it seems like that.
But because it's an Apple TV device and they haven't updated the Apple TV Netflix app to do this stuff. Yeah, it's a crazy world. But yeah, so a Windows 10 PC running the Windows Netflix app from the Microsoft Store. You download it directly from the Microsoft Store on your Windows 10 PC. That one could do it. Then an LG OLED can do it. And we're hoping that the Apple TV 4K can do it. But yeah, that's it.
But our insider over at Microsoft Testing has said that they're maybe fixing it a little bit.
It's come and gone in some of the alphas and betas.
He told us, hey, they fixed it. And then he's like,
and then it reverted.
I just got a new version. It's not fixed anymore. It's rebroken. I'm like, dude.
Again, there's no reason the hardware can't do it.
Oh, this is quite literally the stupidest problem.
Just give us the option, like just have it say, let my AV receiver always handle audio and put a warning in there. If you choose this, notification sounds will not be audible. And you go, okay, I accept those terms.
Yeah. What's the big deal?
All you have to do.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite literally, and that's the only reason they're doing it, is
Absolutely.
so that they can give you the notification sounds. And I'm with you, Rob. I don't want the notifications. I want to turn the notifications off. I'm watching, Netflix or something, and they go bling, and somebody comes on. It's
I mean, by all means, put the warning there, because some people would be upset.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I have one person shows up every once in a while, and he's like my cousin's son, who my son was supposed to play video games with. They couldn't figure out how to make it work. I don't know why, but I wasn't going to help him because not my problem. But there, every once in a while, somebody pop up. I'm like, who the heck is this? It's somebody I played Left 4 Dead with 7 years ago. I haven't seen them forever, and they pop on to play Rock Band with their family, and suddenly, they're showing up on we're watching whatever show we're watching. All right, my thing's not scrolling. All right, Chris has ELAC debut, the original series speakers, in a 5.1 setup in a roughly 10 by 10 foot room. There's a fairly wide closet at the back wall that starts at the left wall and goes across the back wall more than halfway, so his seats are pressed right back against the closet doors. Inside the closet, you shall never look. There's a door that leads outside on the left wall towards the front, and a door into the room on the right wall towards the front. So weird.
Doors on either side wall.
Yeah, where does the left wall go?
Left wall goes outside.
Oh, outside. Okay. Yeah. All right. So maybe this was the garage at one point. Anyways, the door, the right wall is okay. His SVS SB12 NSD subwoofer is in the right rear corner, right? Which probably is pretty far away from his little couch situation here. All right. So Chris is having a dialogue intelligibility problems, and given the rave reviews of the ELAC debut speakers, he was expecting them to sound much cleaner. What can he do to fix his dialogue issue? Will acoustic panels help? If so, where should he put them? Directly behind your head.
Yep.
You're sitting around that. You're sitting around that wall, dude.
And I do think they would help, but there's more that I think is going on here as well.
Yeah, if you look at the picture of his speakers, it does look like his center channel is actually above and behind his TV.
It certainly does, yeah. And not only that, it looks as though because it's above the TV, it's quite high up, certainly above his head when he's sitting down, and it's firing straight forward as far as I can tell.
It doesn't look like it's angled at all.
It is not angled downward whatsoever.
Yeah, you're gonna. If it were me, I would see where your AV receiver is.
Okay. Yep.
I mean, you could put it there. You could also just build a little, I mean, maybe or buy a little stand that to put the speaker under, on, put the TV on, so that you basically
raise the TV up so that your center speaker goes on the top shelf where the TV is currently
it looks like he has the Vizio with those weirdo leg.
Yeah,
things.
the outside legs, like so many TVs have these days. Yeah,
I hate those, man.
But yeah, I mean, I think a fair amount of your current issue is just that your center speaker right now it's up high and not angled down. You could certainly angle it down. It also looks like ideally you would raise your center speaker a little bit higher, because right now it's behind the TV and just like a little bit below the upper edge. And I'm sure that's because of what he had available to stand it on.
Yeah.
So ideally you would get it up a little bit higher so that it's clearing the top of your TV, and then you can angle it down toward you. And I believe that'll help quite a bit. Now, acoustic panels behind your head would also help, because you have a very hard, flat, reflective surface very close behind your head.
It's hard to tell by looking at these couches exactly how high it could be. Like, if he's me, his head's not clearing this couch to begin with. So if he's got the speaker above it and then angled down, it may be firing kind of into that couch anyways. And that may be enough, just doing that.
Oh, I would certainly get the center speaker positioned and angled and try that before buying anything.
I mean, if you look at that picture from the side on this thing, it looks like it is a good 2 to 3 inches of it are being blocked. The bottom of it are being blocked by the TV, and it's firing straight forward. I 100% agree. Raise it up, angle it down, and then see what happens.
And if you still like, okay, it sounds better, but not quite all the way, then try putting something, like absorptive, like a comforter folded behind your head.
A blanket and put it behind your head. Yeah.
And give that a try. And if that works, then you go, okay, I can get something prettier to permanently put behind my head.
Yes, we're getting different speakers fix the problem, and really it's unlikely. I mean, I'm sure you could find something, something that's already has a little stand on it, and that you can angle. Then that would fix it. But I don't think that's really. It's not the speaker itself that's doing that. It's just the design of it. So
and
I don't really think
after you've repositioned the center speaker, whatever room correction you have, you got to rerun it again.
Don't forget that. Yeah, that's real important.
Don't leave it with your old room correction. You're gonna want to redo your auto EQ.
All right, Sean says, given the choice between a mono-price Monolith 7X, which is a 7 by 200 watts, right?
That's the new model that has the XLR inputs that people wanted.
That's $1,600. The Emotiva XPA 7 Gen 3, that's $2,000, 7 by 200 watts. Outlaw Model 7220, which is the 7 by 220 watts for $2,300. But I guess there's an introductory price for $2,150, whatever. And the Parasound Halo A52 Plus, which is 5 by 180 watts for almost just under $3,000. Which one would we choose by why? I am going with the Monolith because it's the cheapest.
Yeah, I mean, not only is it the cheapest and essentially has the same wattage as all these others, because 20 watts one way or another is not going to make a difference.
Well, I think Monolith and the Outlaw aren't they both getting their amplifiers from the same place?
They are both made by ATI. Now, that Outlaw model 7220, that's a brand new model for them.
Yeah.
And it is interesting because it's borrowing quite a bit of the technology that ATI put into their signature level amplifiers. So it has an even better signal-to-noise ratio, although it was already fantastic in the ones that are like the Monolith is based on. But it's even better signal-to-noise ratio. Now, because they designed it for Outlaw with a single 20-amp inlet,
oh God,
they decided to also give it active cooling, which some people are worried about. Now, they're big case fans, which means they should be able to spin quite silently. But some people are a little bit worried about having any cooling fans inside of their amplifier. But this is how they're able to get this much power at that price with crazy low noise compared to the signal. And it's also, that one is a fully balanced amplifier. Like, there are 2 completely separate amplifier stages for each channel, one just doing the rise and one just doing the fall. So yeah, it's a pretty special amp. That's actually like $2,300. The full price is actually a very good price for that type of amp. But you just don't need it.
Yeah.
You just don't.
And the
I would go the monolith all the way.
The Parasound is just ridiculous. Let's just be honest here. I mean, the Parasound is an amp that is probably, I'm sure
very good.
It's a very good amp, but you're not buying a very good amp for $3,000 5 by 180
with fewer channels of amplification.
Yeah,
and actually, specs-wise, its signal-to-noise ratio is the worst out of all of these.
So I mean,
it's still good. It's just
you're buying the cachet of owning a Parasound. Right. I mean, basically, you're buying the name. So if and you know what? I'm okay with that. If you really love the way they look and you love the name and you love owning Parasound gear, knock yourself out, man. You don't need my permission to spend $3,000 on this.
Yeah, but if you can't go wrong with any of these. You get any one of these will be like, you got a really good amp. But we would both go for the monolith because it's the least expensive and it's really, really good.
None of us, almost none of us listening to this podcast, and certainly none of us doing this podcast, have any need for this amplifier in any way, shape, or form. Like, I just sit way too close to my speakers. You know, I'd have to get new speakers and a bigger house. So, nah. Jason, most Blu-ray discs that let me try again. Most Blu-ray discs that you buy come with a digital copy. How comparable is that to what's on the disc? Is it bit for bit, or is it a lower quality version? It's Voodoo, dude, most of the time. I mean, it's not always, but
it can be iTunes as well. You can
get so it is a lossy version, and you can stream it from those servers. So you would need a player that can access Voodoo or iTunes, depending on which one you went with.
It can be also Fandango now because they're part of Ultraviolet and that. And
but that still all comes back to Voodoo. You can still watch all that stuff on Voodoo. So they're all kind of like interconnected now. So
well, now with the Movies Anywhere thing that almost every service has signed on to, including iTunes. So that's the good thing about Movies Anywhere is that with these digital copies, now regardless of which service it was for, they sort of cross-pollinate. Yeah. So that's really nice. I'm glad that they've done that. But none of these are bit for bit to the disc. These are all the version that they have on iTunes or on Voodoo, either of which is more heavily compressed than the version that's on your disc. Also, none of them have lossless audio.
Right.
Doesn't mean the audio is bad. It's just it's not the same lossless audio.
Yeah, the Voodoo has the HDX versions.
Yeah, they got the HDX, and iTunes has they'll have Atmos now. That's coming up. So. But it's lossy Atmos.
If you want a lossless, you have to go with the Kaleidoscape service, which I don't know if that still exists. Does it still exist?
Oh yeah, Kaleidoscape is actually doing half decently these days. Okay. And so, they are essentially bit for bit for what is on the disc.
Yeah, but you're just basically buying it again. You buy it from them rather than buying the physical disc because that's how. I mean, it's the same price or sometimes more expensive. So he asked, can the digital copies be used on the Plex server? I mean, can your device that has the Plex server on it have access to one of the apps that can stream the video? Because that's
that way, yeah.
If the NVIDIA Shield can do it, because it's gonna access the Voodoo app, and that's what you'll do. But no,
not the iTunes app though. Can't get the iTunes app on NVIDIA Shield. So let's see. If it's a streaming version, such as any of the 4K versions that are available on iTunes or on Voodoo, you can't download those. They will only stream the 4K version. So if you're buying an Ultra HD Blu-ray and the digital copy gives you access to the 4K version, because not all of them do. Some of the digital copies limit you to the 1080p version, although if you redeem that on iTunes, you automatically get upgraded to the 4K anyway, so things are crazy on that front as well. But Plex basically plays things that you have stored on local storage. It's not a streaming service. Mm-hmm. So if you get the downloadable version, so like on iTunes, you can download the 1080p version. On Voodoo, you can usually download the 1080p version. And once you have that download, then you could have Plex access that. But they're not letting you download the 4K versions right now. Those only stream. So that's kind of a maybe. If you get the 1080p version, maybe. Yeah.
So Infinity War comes out tomorrow.
It does. On disc. It's already out for download.
I know. I think I'm going to buy it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to be in the ask forgiveness rather than permission.
I think you'll enjoy it.
So. And
apparently the audio on it isn't all borked like all of the previous Disney releases.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, everyone's like, they seem to got it right this time.
All right, I hope so. Armando on Facebook. Armando's trying to decide between a 7.2 Pioneer Elite SC LX502 or the 9.2 Onkyo TXNR787 receiver. Which one would we say is the better value and why? None of the above? Can I say none of the above? Can we say, what are you looking for, dude? Because why are these two the ones you're looking at?
Well, he found them for good prices, not refurbished, because of course we always look at accessories for less.
Okay.
Big fans of that. But he found very good prices on these for brand new units.
Okay.
And they were in his price range.
I hear you. I still would go with the refurbished unit. I would go with the refurbished unit 100% of the time, every time. Accessories for less is bulletproof, as far as I'm concerned, and they stand behind any problems they have.
They definitely do.
I would not buy either of these. These do not have the good.
I can certainly make an argument for the Onkyo, because that Onkyo 787 is the least expensive receiver out there, new or refurbished.
Right.
That lets you do 9 speakers. It lets you do the 5.2.4 or 7.2.2. There's no receiver out there that is less expensive that lets you do 9 speakers like that. Now, that's where it stops.
I was going to say, then you'll have Odyssey. You don't have all the rest of the stuffs.
The 787 cannot go to 11 speakers. It cannot have any external amps attached to it. It has no pre-outs other than the subwoofer outs. But so you have to use the 9 built-in amps. But that is a significant feature that the 7.2 Pioneer completely does not offer you. The 7.2 Pioneer 502 stops at 7 speakers. It cannot do 4 overhead speakers. There's no way, no how. So if you want 4 overhead speakers, the answer is very clear. You get the Onkyo.
Yeah, 5.2.4. I guess I see. I can see the value there. I can see that, but
well, you can get the Onkyo 787 $550 at Accessories for Less. So to have a receiver that can do 9 speakers for $550, pretty compelling.
Now, Onkyo has always been in my book. Not always. I'll say they were always in my book the feature leader when it came to price points.
At one time, they were. Yeah.
They were big time, and maybe that's where they're going again.
I hope so.
In order to do that, a lot of times they had to cut certain corners, or make certain design sacrifices that other companies didn't do, but other companies charged more. So,
or didn't have all those features.
If you are in a room where 5.2.4 is all you'll have and all you're ever going to have, and you are working with speakers that you're pretty sure aren't, that this Onkyo is going to be able to power no problem, and you're sitting close enough and never really getting that loud, this is probably okay. You're still missing out on Odyssey, which I think is a huge, mark against it. But if it's not to you, then I could get behind that. But again, you got to realize what you're giving up. You're giving up the ability to add more speakers later. You're giving up the flexibility of adding an amplifier if you want to. You're giving up which you probably wouldn't want to anyways, but whatever.
You never know.
You're giving up the Odyssey and the room correction and everything that goes along with that, because their room correction is, by all accounts, sort of garbage. And by sort of, I mean,
it'll set your distances and levels just fine. Let it do that. Then turn it off.
Guess who else can do that? Anybody with SPL meter and a tape measure. So, okay. Of those two, Onkyo, fine. Okay. But don't buy the Onkyo.
So, to me, the Pioneer is the odd man out, because if all you want is 7 speakers, then I would point you straight away to Denon's X3400H, which you can get for $500 at Accessories for Less. So it's $50 less expensive than the Onkyo 787 at Accessories for Less. But the X3400H stops at 7 speakers. So again, if you want 9 for only $50 more, there's no other game in town besides the 787. So to me, the choice would either be X3400H, because that gets you 7 speakers, but it gets you Odyssey Multi-Q XT32, the highest level of Odyssey, for a price that's the same as the Pioneer 502 from Accessories for Less, also $500. So to me, I would get either the Denon X3400H for $500, or if you want 9 speakers, I'd go ahead and get the Onkyo.
All right. Infinite Gary. Gary has had his Sony A8F OLED professionally calibrated, and as part of the process, his calibrator checked the settings of his Marantz AV receiver and turned the Marantz's video conversion off. Doing so put up a text warning from the Marantz that on-screen graphics such as the volume display or the pop-up that says which listening mode is currently in use would not be available with the video conversion feature turned off. This is typical, Gary. This happens in many different receivers. And
For sure.
this is actually very similar to what's happening with we were talking earlier about the Xboxes. They are not converting the video, but they are doing all that stuff just so they can put in the stupid sounds. So Gary found those graphics convenient. And so how bad is it to leave that feature turned on in the Marantz? Is it really negatively affecting the image he's seeing on screen? Now, most of the time you have the option of turning it on, but having it do nothing.
Right.
And that's what you want to look for in there. And that's what you're honestly, that's what your calibration had done in the first place. He should have, or she should have.
I mean, the default that a calibrator usually does is they just turn it off.
Yes.
Because then they know for sure that it is not touching the signal whatsoever.
Right. So I understand that, but they should have at least given you the option. So you should, I have mine turned on. The video conversion is on, but it's set to do nothing. Don't do it. Just
so the interlaced to progressive conversion, that is deactivated. The resolution is not set to scale anything; it's just set to pass through the original resolution. So it will make your receiver run a bit hotter by having it on, because those video chips tend to heat up. Almost more than your amplifiers do. So it generates some heat by having it on. But no, I mean, as long as you essentially have all of the actual processing just set to pass everything through, you're not harming the signal in any way. You're just adding those graphic overlays that you like. So knock yourself out.
All right. Comparing his professional calibration reports of his LG OLED versus his Sony A8F OLED, there were some different charts and entirely different setting sections in one report versus the other. Would two different calibrators use different methodology? I'm guessing use two calibrators. So
two different calibrators,
Would one calibrator alter more settings than the other calibrator to achieve industry standard results? Well, each display is different.
Yes, and in this case, significantly different in one major way.
So, they are, and those reports are going to reflect, first of all, what those individual calibrators are comfortable doing and what they choose to share with you. Their reports are not like, you press a button and the whole thing comes out. They choose which ones are going to show you different things. And they may show you different things. If you had the same calibrator in multiple times on the same set, they may give you different things based on what they are feeling like that day or what they think makes it look like they did the most work. So there's that. Plus, like I said, I'm sure there's differences between the two sets.
Well, there's one huge difference between the LG OLED and the Sony A8F, and that is that the Sony has no color management system. It doesn't have one. So you cannot individually tune your red, green, blue, cyan, magenta, yellow, whereas on the LG you can. So that was a significant portion of the report that he got for his LG OLED, was what they did in the color management system to dial in the primary and secondary colors, where there is no available controls to even do that on the Sony. So of course that entire section of the report simply isn't there because those controls don't exist. I mean, different calibrators will have slightly different workflows. They don't all use the exact same equipment.
Or software, for that matter. Most of them use CalMan these days.
They all use CalMan, but not necessarily. Somebody
you get the old school guy who's been using whatever the stuff is that we used to use. I can't remember what it's called anymore. He just may be more comfortable with it. So there's that too.
Yep. But there are different ways of still getting to the same industry standards.
Yeah,
so
sure.
That's okay.
Yeah. Gary doesn't want us to think he's obsessing. Okay. He's just curious and wants to understand. He made some settings changes himself on his Sony A8F. Then the professional calibrator adjusted everything and had the measurements and graphs to show the results, but the TV was never factory reset, so the before and after charts would have included Gary's changes. Actually, just the before charts, but whatever.
Yeah, the before section,
The before sections would have been helpful or important to measure a factory default setting prior to the professional calibration being done. Are you reviewing this TV? Because that's when you want to make sure that happens.
Right.
You are not reviewing this TV, which I think this is more informative for you as a person. It shows you how your personal futzing around with it, how close you got.
Yep.
And that tells you something about you and how good your eyes are, or how tuned in your tastes are to these things. And if you were pretty close and they didn't do a ton to it, well, you're like, hey, look at me, I'm smart. And if you're not, then you're like, hey, that calibrator, whatever, and I like my TVs the way I like them.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, what they're targeting, what they want the end result to be, that's independent of where you start.
Yes, that makes no difference. Yeah,
that makes no difference. Now, if you had requested, that's something they certainly could have done, is factory reset the TV,
I don't
measured what it was. I mean, if it was out of curiosity, how close does this TV get out of the box?
Right.
How close did I get with my settings? And then how close did the calibrator get with their professional settings? I mean, if you really wanted to see that, of course you could request that, and maybe they would charge more to do it. I don't know, but
it'd be 2 calibrations. You'd have to do the first calibration from where
not really.
his settings were.
It's just one extra set of measurements, because they're not. It's still one calibration, right? They could
guess
measure.
That's true.
Yeah, they could measure where it is right now,
and then they could
factory reset it, measure again, and then calibrate as they would. So you could have, but I mean, that's not what a calibrator is looking to do it as expediently as they can.
Yeah.
So. Because
I guarantee you that guy would have given you the stink eye if you had asked him to do this. He'd be like,
I mean, a lot of the calibrators are super geeky into this stuff, and they don't mind. For their own edification, they get it. But if the person is trying to do it expediently, they're not going to take an extra unnecessary step. And it is unnecessary. It's not necessary to factory reset it, because anything you could have done in the user menu, that's not like a service menu change where you have to be super careful. You can always zero back anything in the user menu.
They may have done that anyways. They may have taken those initial measurements, zeroed it out, factory reset it,
just
and then
not
calibrated
measured the zeroed out one, because it didn't matter.
Yeah, they wouldn't have. Yeah. So, you don't really need it. I mean, I think this is more informative for you as a human being than it is anything else, because this is who cares what the factory reset calibration looks like. You don't care, unless
you, like Tom says, you're a reviewer who wants to let people know, here's how close you can get just out of the box,
right?
And here's why it may or may not be beneficial to get a professional calibration.
So on a different topic, Gary has tried a Roku Ultra, an Amazon Fire TV, a laptop, and the Sony's A8F built-in Amazon Prime Video app, with each of them having slightly different amounts of lip sync error.
Yup, I can believe that.
Amazon Prime's freaking worst, I swear. Any reason to think an Ultra HD Blu-ray player with the built-in streaming apps would be any better on the lip sync front? Not in my experience.
Probably going to be the worst of all.
Not in my experience. It has been real bad. So the Xbox, what I find is that pick a box for the most part that does all of your stuff, and then hope that the all the apps all have are synced up pretty well. Now the Sony Blu-ray Ultra HD Blu-ray player, it's useless for streaming apps.
Yeah,
I mean the most of the stuff's fine. You could do YouTube, because rarely am I watching anything where people's lips have to be synced up. I'm watching somebody play a video game, or do a tutorial, or open a box or something. And Netflix has been pretty good on all devices. I've never really had many problems with Netflix. But Amazon, man, Amazon's worst. They just even on the Xbox One. And I think if it were me, Gary, and in the way that he likes to spend money and get the best, I would probably get an NVIDIA Shield for him. And even though it's like way overkill, I feel like it's got the power, and it's going to be the one that's going to have the best feature set going forward. Now, right now, maybe something else gets the Atmos before the NVIDIA Shield. I have no doubt that the NVIDIA Shield is
an Apple TV 4K would be up there too, because it's a pretty powerful little box.
Yeah, but I feel like you're going to have to deal with the Apple ecosystem, and they're going to start encoding, re-encoding, and all that crap. It's going to be a problem. I am telling you. My wife just got her new iPhone, and it took her a week to figure out how to get her contacts from one phone to the other, because she wanted to switch iTunes accounts. She's been using my iTunes account, and she doesn't like doing that because, I don't know, liberation or something. And she created her own, and she was trying to get her contacts over and couldn't do it. She was like, I guess I'll just have to go back to using your account. I'm like, you know what? Just keep using it for a bit. And then she signed into her email, and somehow that fixed it.
Okay.
So stuff like that is just stupid. And I'm feeling the same way about my Xbox One, but the NVIDIA Shield, I feel like, has got the best chance of having all the streaming services, and it's got enough processing power and features and all that stuff where maybe it'll be the one.
Well, it's not going to be the cause of your lag, but doesn't mean there won't be any. I certainly wouldn't pin my hopes on a disc player with built-in streaming apps. That I would not pin my hopes there.
No. Oh, Gary discovered that his Anthem processor can store a different amount of lip sync delay for each input. I think that's pretty typical, isn't it?
Well, that's what he's asking.
Oh, good. Oh, I never read this question. So, so you could potentially create a lip sync delay setting just for whatever source he ends up using for Amazon Prime Video, without messing up the lip sync for all those other sources. Is he just super lucky that his Anthem has this feature, or do pretty much all receivers offer that? I think they all do. I feel like
a lot do.
do.
The recent Onkos certainly do. I saw that in the manual. It for sure does. I don't know. I haven't really done it on my Marantz, so I'm not sure if mine does or not. But it's not unique. I know for sure the Onkos do it right now.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure my Denon does. I'm pretty sure because I've messed up the lip sync on one and didn't mess it up on the other one.
Okay, there you go.
So I'm pretty sure that it does.
And but it won't help you if you're using the source for multiple streaming services.
That's true.
Then, yeah. So.
But I'm gonna say, Gary, I'm guessing you're gonna click on a different video and it's gonna be on Amazon Prime, and the lip sync error is gonna be different.
Right.
Okay, because that's what happened to me. Like,
yep.
Mr. Robot or whatever that show is called.
Yep.
It's insane. It's so bad. I can fix it, but then the lip sync is so bad on everything else. It's so terrible. Oh God, it was awful. So Gary found an in-depth article about Dolby's dialogue normalization, but it's from 2001. Has anything drastically changed in the last 17 years, or is the information in this article still correct and relevant? I did not click on this article.
From what I read, I mean, that's certainly the way Dolby still describes what dialogue normalization does. So nothing hugely changed on that front. Good article.
Nick has some butt kicker questions. So do my kids, but mostly, Daddy, why do you keep kicking my butt? So how do you determine the trim level for the subwoofer output that is sending the signal to the butt kicker? Is it purely just setting it to personal preference, or is there some trim level setting that would be considered accurate for a tactile transducer? I think this is 100% to taste. There's just so many other things that are going on with this. It's like, where you connected it versus where your bottom is, how big and heavy your couch is.
Oh, yes. That makes a big difference.
How plush is it? I mean, is it a more firm seat that you're sitting on, or is it very, very plush? It's to taste, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's no setting we can tell you put it here and this will for sure be correct. No, it's a bit of trial and error. Figure out what feels right to you. Yeah.
So if you have a 3-seater couch, which would deliver the better experience? 3 butt kicker minis or 1 butt kicker advance? Don't they have one that's specifically for 3-seater couches?
That would be the butt kicker advance? Yeah,
I mean, it kind of depends on the design of your couch.
It does. How rigid is the framing? Does it squeak when it moves?
Right. My couch is actually 3 individual seats that kind of like click into each other. Yeah, and I think that you would need 3 individual ones.
Yeah, I'd err on the side of 3 individual ones in that case. Yeah.
But if you have like an old, just a couch that sits
a single frame couch,
and then I would just get the advanced.
It would be cheaper. So yeah.
What if you have a much larger couch, maybe 5 or 6-seater, 1 mini for each seat, 2 butt kicker advanced, maybe a step up to a butt kicker LFE? Isn't that the one that shakes the room?
That is the one that can shake your subfloor. Yes.
Yeah, no, don't get that.
For a riser. That's still overkill. That sucker. I would try. So again, if you have 1 solid frame for this entire 5 or 6-seater couch, I would try 1 advance.
Yeah, me too.
Because we're talking about, this thing is physically attached to the frame of your chair, and it is moving a big, heavy I guess it's probably, I don't know what material it is. It has to be magnetically conductive, so it's not going to be lead. But a big, heavy piece of metal just moving back and forth. I mean, it's think about just like tapping on a metal rail. Right? Yeah. You get that thing just at the right resonant frequency. You don't have to tap it very hard for that thing to move a lot. So I would just do 1 butt kicker advance. I'd be shocked if it weren't enough. But if it weren't enough, then you can add a second one later.
I don't think that this is the case, because the 5 or 6 seat couch, that's all 1 unit. I don't think that exists. I think it's going to be. So I think what you have to do is look at it from the individual units.
Yeah.
So if it's a seat, that sits a person, then you need the mini to shake that. Now, if it's got 3 or 4 of them right next to each other that are all clicked in together, don't assume that that's going to be good enough to shake. Putting 1 advance is going to be shaking everything. 1 person is going to be getting like the magic fingers bed thing going on, and the other people were like, I don't feel nothing, because it's not going to go through the little hooks.
Yeah.
So you're going to need the mini for each one of them. But if there's like one part of the couch that's all one piece, and it seats 3 people, get advanced for that. And if there's something else attached to it that's only for 1 or 2 people, maybe get a mini for that. So you kind of have to look at it as in what is all one unit.
Agreed.
And if you do have I'm gonna be honest with you, dude, if you do have a couch that connects together like I'm talking about, the possibility for extraneous noise during this process is so high, I would not even consider getting a butt kicker, but that's me. So what if you're considering getting home theater seating with reclining seats and built-in cup holders in a few years? What's the easiest butt kicker model to repurpose for different seating? Minis ones obviously would be, but again, I think you're playing with fire here. I don't know. I mean, maybe it'll be fine. Or maybe it's gonna stink.
I mean,
so
a mini for each seat is the easiest, because then you know exactly it's 1 mini per seat, so it can't get easier than that for if you're not certain what your future plans are. But you
honestly, if you got like the love seat ones that they have, where there's like whatever, that's usually still 2 units. It's 2 individual seats without that are connected to each other without an arm on either. So that there's a whatever, because they all recline. They all have their own reclining settings. So that's that's how that works. All right, John. You know what I want? Hey, butt kicker. If you're listening, but you're not. No. But if you were, send me 3 of those minis, and I'll make me a believer. Make me a believer. You have to send the amp too, because I ain't buying the amp for this crap. But make me a believer. You make me a believer, and I've been down talking you guys for about a decade. You want to convert somebody? Convert me. I've got a 2-seater couch in the back, and I've got a 1-seat too. Give me and I've got the couch that's 3 different units with the 2 seats. It's gonna have a double 1.5 seats, and then a single seat in the center. Give me 3 minis, 1 advanced, and another mini. So 4 minis, and the amps to power the whole thing. And I will test it on all the different couches, and I will hate it, or I won't, and everybody will be amazed.
Yeah.
So, all right, John. John moved and now has enough space for 2 surround sound setups. His second setup is in his finished attic, so the ceiling is pitched with slants in the front and back of his viewing area. Okay, so we have his picture here. For those of you, it's like an A-frame. His couch is pretty much around the back wall, and then the A-frame goes up above his head, and then there's a little flat spot in the center, and then it goes down towards the front of his room, or the front of where his TV would be.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's and over to the right. That's so it's open on the right side, and over there are the stairs going downstairs, and kind of a storage area where he's got kind of like a day bed going on over there. So the right side of the room is open, and the left side.
What do you call that the bed that slides underneath it? Trundle bed? Is that what that called?
I'm not certain enough to say.
All right, well there you go. All right, good talk.
Yeah.
All right, so it's all hardwood floor. He's got a rug down. He's got surround speakers on the wall, mounted on the wall and firing, it looks like, directly to the sides, which looks good. Again, his couch is on the wall facing the TV. The TV is pulled out a little bit because it has to be, and it's on top of a piece of wood, and he's got speakers on stands. I do not see center channel is in the thingy.
Yes.
In the thing. Okay. All right, good. All described. This is a very nice looking room, really.
It is. I like it.
So he's got 5 Ascend Acoustic Sierra Series speakers and an HSU VTF3 Mark V subwoofer, which is hidden in the cabinet below his TV. But he's currently using an older receiver. He'd like to upgrade to Atmos. He's wondering if it's worth paying the higher price tag for a receiver that can process 4 overhead speakers, or maybe just 2 overhead speakers would be fine. Surround back speakers definitely aren't needed since there's no back. So what we recommend, 5.1.2 or 5.1.4? First of all, I recommend 5.2 point something, but never mind that.
This is his second setup. So
yeah. I don't know how I feel about this.
I'd want you to get 4 overheads. I always want you to get 4 overheads. If you're going to do Atmos, I want you to have 4 overheads.
I don't know, Rob.
You get no front to back panning without 4 overheads. I want you to have 4.
He's sitting so close to his speakers, though. Okay, so
you get top middles and you get front heights.
You can, and I would not be against that. Since your speakers are kind of low to the ground, anyways, and your surrounds are so far out, you could put the Atmos ones kind of like on either side of the couch, right above your head, sort of thing, and they would still have quite a few feet between the speakers, the surround speakers at least. And then you certainly have top, middle, front heights that would be no problem to do in this room.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So fine. You could. I think that you're fine either way, but Rob's whatever. I still am not convinced that front heights do anything.
I mean, you could go with that Onkyo, and then you're not spending a mint.
That's true. You're sitting close.
$550 from Accessories for Less, 5.1.4, and you're good to go.
What we recommend for his overhead speakers, he's checked that it would be possible to install in-ceiling speakers, but the angles of a ceiling, he has the angles of the ceiling to contend with, and he'd want speakers that mesh nicely with the Ascend Sierra speakers. So what's our suggestion? Dude, I don't think you can. I just kicked that.
Something moved. I saw your camera move.
I just did it again.
There it is. It's back to where it was.
Apparently, my foot has a memory of whether
we might be like overlapped there in the side-by-side video for a little while.
That's all right. Just a second. Okay, so I don't think that you can put overhead speakers because they're going to be firing in the wrong direction. This is a perfect solution for one of those, either the smallest bird ones, whatever they're called.
Little birds. I love getting the little birds, and they match nicely with Ascend speakers. So,
or the KEF. Don't the KEF have something that is aimable as well?
The E301s. That's yeah.
Either of those, I think, makes the most sense, and it'll be so much easier for you to just mount them into the ceiling, and then face them straight down.
Aim them wherever you please. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Where are we on time here, David? Well, we're just chugging along.
Hopefully.
Is Sonos a good home theater solution? David asked. A wireless 5.1 Sonos packages cost about $1,700. David knows none of their products support Atmos, but if you just want 5.1, is the sound quality good enough that it's competitive with a more traditional setup? People who've written about their 5.1 Sonos setup seem to really like it, almost to Apple cult devotion level. So what's the scoop?
I wouldn't do it.
No. Okay, this is the thing. Okay. Whenever you run into a group of people who are fanatically in love with something, look at the cost, because that fanaticism is, in my opinion, 100% generated from their desire to justify the amount of money they spent on it. They feel deep in their hearts that they spent way too much money on this crap. That's what everybody feels about Beats by Dre. That's what everybody feels about Bose, everything that Bose makes. That's what everybody feels about Monster Cable. They deep in their hearts, even if they love them, they feel like they spent too much money and they got ripped off. So rather than admit that they are stupid for getting ripped off when they knew they were getting ripped off, they're like, I have to find a reason why these are the best things that have ever been. And then that ego protection that they were wrapping themselves in, it turns into the cult of Apple or the cult of Sonos or whatever. Now, being said,
I appreciate the ease of setup.
Yes,
I appreciate that.
If
you already have Sonos in every single room, and you want the simplest way to make sure that you can send any of your existing sound sources into your home theater and send any of your home theater sound into any of your other rooms, and you've already invested in a whole Sonos setup, I can totally see you going, hey, they have a 5.1 solution. It'll mean that everything is already set up for me to work with the rest of things. I can see the argument being made.
Sure, throwing bad money after good or good money after bad or however they say it. Sure, absolutely. 100%.
That sub of theirs is not a sub.
Okay, now I wanted to be clear. I've got nothing against Sonos. I've got nothing against them. I
like them as a whole house solution.
As a whole house solution, for a long time they were the only really good game in town. Now they've taken that and transformed it into a it's a cachet of buying Sonos. I've got Sonos. You have Sonos? No, I've got I installed actual speakers in my house and I use a distribution app. Oh. Well, I've got Sonos. It's wireless. Look, I don't even have to do anything.
For this same price, like let's say the form factor you wanted was the soundbar type of form factor up front, because that's all that'll fit on your wall, whatever.
Right, sure.
If you want that, you could spend less than this amount of money and get one of the genuine Atmos soundbar solutions.
Yeah.
LG's got them, Samsung's got them, Sony's got them,
right.
And they're all less expensive than this, and you would have a 5.1.4 actual setup with a better subwoofer than what Sonos has still wireless in the subwoofer, but the other things, I mean, the surround speakers are still wireless in those soundbar setups too. So even if the soundbar and wireless surrounds and wireless subwoofer is what's attracting you, there are less expensive and better solutions than this.
Now, that being said, if you've already bought this thing, good on you, mate. I hope you love it, because it doesn't.
Well, like I said, I can see the arguments. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I understand. I understand. I mean, I don't want you to think that we're bashing you or bashing Sonos. I'm not. I'm just saying that the question is, could you, at least in my mind, the question is Sonos worth the price? And the answer is, if you're willing to put in the work to do a little bit of research and maybe not have like the plug and play aspect quite so well oiled as it is with Sonos.
I mean, there's no lossless audio options whatsoever. I mean, let alone Atmos and that you can't do lossless audio of any sort on any of the Sonos 5.1 packages. So it's not about utmost quality. It's about convenience. And they make a strong argument on that front, and I have no problem with that.
Michael. So he says some websites say optical audio connections or Toslink can output Dolby Digital Plus in the Dolby Digital Plus version of Atmos, but other places say optical cannot output Dolby Digital Plus, and you're limited to just vanilla Dolby Digital 5.1. So which is it? Can it be different on different TV models? Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Okay, what can optical do? Optical can do full lossless HDMI, 18 gigabits per second, blah 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 blah. It can do it. It's fiber optic is like the
well. There's I forget what that professional interface is called. It uses the exact same Toslink cables, but it makes use of them to output like full lossless uncompressed PCM audio.
Yeah.
So the cable is capable of doing it. The little connector is capable of accepting the signal, but Toslink SPDIF signals, that's where the limitation is.
And so each manufacturer determines that for themselves when they're designing their TV, what they think should be able to be output through this. Right. Now, there are some limitations from the HDMI group and stuff like that, where industry has said that you can't send whatever.
Yeah. I mean, the Dolby Digital Plus, that was a bit of a workaround. Vizio did it. Vizio got Dolby Digital Plus coming out of their optical output, but it was a workaround. It's certainly not part of the original spec, because Dolby Digital Plus doesn't even exist back then. But Dolby Digital Plus can have the same bit rate, or in fact an even lower bit rate than vanilla Dolby Digital.
Right.
It's very, very scalable. And certainly, I mean, like vanilla DTS 5.1 has a much higher bit rate. So as far as the amount of bits being sent down the fiber optic cable, is no problem on that front. It's just the chips that are connecting to that interface that decide what signals can get sent within the available bandwidth. So Dolby Digital Plus can certainly fit within the bandwidth, but you have to have a workaround in what chips are connected to make it work. So by default, the answer is that the optical audio connection, the Toslink connection, does not support Dolby Digital Plus. The original version didn't. The standard chips for it do not. But it is possible to do it via a workaround if the manufacturer wants to spend the money to do it, as Vizio did.
So he's got a Sony Z9D. I said Z just for you.
You did.
Z9D television and a Denon X6400H receiver. Much like Caesar from a couple weeks ago, he was never able to get HDMI ARC working. So he was hoping our instructions we gave for all the settings in both the Sony and the Denon will work for him. But when he looked in the digital out settings option, there's nothing there to choose between HDMI and optical, just the options to lock the output to 2-channel PCM, Dolby Digital, or DTS. So any ideas with this setup, with this specific setup to get ARC working? Dude, I think we got to stop answering these questions, or this is just going to end up being like, how do I turn off this on my computer? But yes, go ahead, answer this one. But let's,
sure. Yeah. Man, oh man, was this manual no help. Good grief. And he was like, I called Sony customer support, and they're like, did you do this? He's like, yeah. Did you do this? Yeah. Well, it should work. Bye. So, yeah. My answer might not help you, but going through the horrible manual and then finding a connections manual and trying to sort this out. So in your case, you press the home button, you go to the settings, and then for whatever reason on the Z9D, it has under the settings tab the TV settings, which I'm like, yeah, this is a TV. All the settings have to do with the TV, but whatever. It's its own separate tab. So settings, TV, and then sound. And under sound, you can choose what happens to your TV's built-in speakers, and you need to turn them off.
Okay.
Because otherwise, it plays the sound of the TV's built-in speakers. Why the so what was he had an X940E, which uses the exact same chips as the Z9T. Why the menus would be different? This was Caesar versus Michael.
Oh, right.
I don't know, but whatever. The menus are different. And then there's another one, which is if HDMI CEC needs to be active, and we don't know for sure that it does. But if it does, then you go home and settings and TV. And then you go to your external inputs and activate Bravia Sync, because that's Sony's name for HDMI CEC. Now, all the stuff inside of your Denon should be the same as what we told Caesar, which is you do have the 3 separate things all relating to ARC. You have HDMI control, HDMI ARC, audio return channel, and TV audio automatics switching. So you should only have to turn on HDMI audio return channel, but you might need to turn on HDMI control. And if you do, the other 2 things will automatically get turned on if you turn on control. That should do it. I hope so. Fingers crossed.
I was trying to get a credit card for my business because my wife wants to try to help keep the finances separate. And Capital One sent me I applied for a card. They sent me some stuff like, we need some more information. So I'm looking at it, and it seems like I know what they want.
Okay.
So I think to myself, I want to be sure. And there's a helpline here. So I call the helpline, and the dude's like, I tell him what, describe, hey, I wanted a credit card. You sent me this letter. I would like to make sure that I'm giving you what you want. And he's like, okay, so did you read this part? I'm like, yeah, I read it. I want to make sure from a human being that I'm getting the thing you want. And then basically all he was capable of doing was listening for keywords that I said and then reading me parts of the letter that I had already gotten back at me. And I was like, all right, you've been no help whatsoever. I'm going to hang up on you now.
Follow the script.
I was like, this is not helpful. So, dude, I feel your pain. Calling Sony must be a lot like that. Yeah. Brandon lives in Florida. Yay. And he gets quite a few lightning strikes near his house. That is true. He's had the HDMI inputs on his Epson projector and the HDMI outputs on his Denon X4300H receiver fail on him 3 times now. He's planning to upgrade his projector anyway, so it'd be an opportune time to make some changes. Okay, both devices are plugged into surge protectors, but the electrical outlet for his projector is in the ceiling, so he isn't using a full battery backup or power conditioner up there. Just a basic surge protector. Do we think that that would be the culprit for allowing the lightning strike surges through and then having that surge go through his 35-foot HDMI cable to also fry his Denon HDMI outputs? You're telling me that 100% every cable that is in any way connected to a device that is connected to anything it's all protected. Everything. You haven't just plugged in your Marantz and everything into into a surge protector, and then I've got this Ethernet cable that's plugged into my modem, which is in another room, and that's plugged into the wall. Are you telling me that your cable box,
your television cable,
that one is plugged into a surge protector as well? Because before you start blaming surge protectors, which you could, you have to protect every single cable, every single one. It's not like the surge protector is like, oh, there's a surge coming through from the projector side. I will block it somehow magically with my force field powers. It's just, it doesn't work that way. If you have one vulnerability, you might as well not plug anything into anything. And honestly, dude, I'm with you. I have vulnerabilities all over this place, and I live in Florida as well. So I've gotten lucky, but yeah, my cable is I need a surge protector on my modem and my router. My router is connected to my with the bi cable to this. I don't have anything else, I think, that comes from outside. Everything else is protected, but that's the only one, and all I need is a surge protector on that thing, and I'm fully protected because I'm not using cable.
But not only that, regular surge protectors that use MOVs, metal oxide varistors, they do self-sacrifice, and they do degrade a little at a time every time there's a small surge, and you might never notice it until it fails.
We talked about that with the Surge X guy.
We did, and that's actually why Even though Surge X is kind of expensive, but not completely out of the realm of reasonability, when you're in a place that gets frequent lightning strikes, frequent power problems, frequent surges like this, it could very well be worth your while to invest in a Surge X device because they are non-self-sacrificial. They can get hit over and over and over and over again, and they just bounce back because they are not sacrificial parts and they don't degrade over time when they get hit repeatedly. It could very well be worth your while to go with Surge X. It could save you money in the long run because if you've had to replace your AV receiver and your projector 3 times, I mean, even if it's under warranty and all you were paying was shipping, still, you know, that adds up. And every time there's a lightning strike, you got to replace all your surge protectors because they just sacrificed themselves. It could be worth it. Easily worth it.
Yeah. Will a battery backup solution for his projector help at all? And if so, is there one that could withstand being in his attic during a Florida summer? Or would he need some other solution for getting battery backup power to his ceiling outlet? Okay, well, the battery backup part of it will help your projector in that it could save your bulb during blackouts.
Power goes out and your projector was on, the battery keeps the cooling cycle going so you can turn it off properly without the bulb blowing.
The battery backup doesn't help protect
the
from
lightning
surges.
Strike.
Yeah,
No.
that doesn't do anything on that front. Now, we talked last week about a couple of these things that can go up kind of high, but
I wouldn't put it in a Florida attic. Nope.
Putting stuff like this in a Florida attic is just asking for trouble. Heat is not not a friend of electronics. Certainly not a friend of surge protectors. So what you should do instead of what you've done is run a Romex line from a properly installed box up by your projector down to where your surge protector is inside the room, or your
for your other gear,
and then use a
male inlet plug.
Yeah, a male inlet plug on one side and the female on the other, so that you can. It's actually basically an in-wall extension cord. Plug that into, and that way your power is actually coming from your surge protector.
Yeah, you can keep the exact same outlet that you have in your ceiling right now.
Yeah, sure.
You would just be rerunning the Romex that's connected to that, which I'm sure is up in your attic. Yeah. Instead of running that back to your electrical panel, you would now run it down to a location that's near your other equipment. You would attach it to a male inlet. So now it's just a male inlet going through the Romex to the outlet that you have on your ceiling. And so you connect a regular power cord from the battery backup that you would have next to all the rest of your equipment. And then that plugs into the male inlet and feeds the outlet that's on your ceiling. It's just an extension cord that happens to be inside your wall. So yeah, that's what you would do for that. And then if you want to get Surge X, they do have a battery backup unit that has their full power protection. Now, they only give you 2 outlets that are on the battery and 4 outlets that are not. And it does cost $1,100. It's expensive. But if you're replacing all your crap all the time because of lightning strikes, that pays for itself. Yeah. I could easily justify that price.
Yeah. I was looking at the Surge stuff that was on the.
Yeah. Outlaw Audio does sell Surge X products, but they only carry their sort of normal surge protectors. They have a nice compact one that could go behind a flat panel TV or something like that, but it's $250. But non-self-sacrificial. Yeah.
And that, if you don't want to do the other thing with running the Romex stuff like that, you could use something like that with your projector, but you're still risking not having battery backup.
Yeah, you still have no battery backup. But if you just wanted to put something that can go right next to that ceiling outlet and give you very good non-self-sacrificial surge protection, $250, you can get the flat one from Surge X.
And if you're not comfortable working with electricity and you don't want to touch the outlet that's up there, just doing the installation for this other thing is real easy that we're talking about. It's quite easy. And not only that, there are all-in-one solutions that you can buy from
Sonos has one.
Sonos has one. It's a little more, it's quite a bit more expensive than buying the parts individually themselves. But if you're really not comfortable touching this stuff, you're literally not plugging it into electricity at all when you install this. No. It is just an in-wall power cable that you are installing into your wall yourself. And it is quite easy. If you have access to
Your
attic, which you clearly do, then you would just run it from that wall down to the other wall, and you just buy a little fishing line, not a fish. I always call it fish tape, but whenever I think of fish tape, I think somebody's going to try to buy it.
Tactile store.
Tactile store. That's right. So he'll need a new HDMI cable that can handle 18 gigabits per second. Anyways, would a fiber optic HDMI cable be a better choice, since it would not provide an electrically conductive path between the projector and the receiver? I'm not convinced that that this is the only way that this electricity is getting into your home theater. Anyways, he seems to be convinced that it's coming from the projector side of it, which
probably because he's like, the only thing that blew on the Denon was the HDMI output, so
right.
I was thinking that's the direction that it went, but not necessarily. That just might be the weakest thing in the AV receiver, and that's where the electricity went.
It just could be that's the only, you've only got so many things plugged in, and it just happened to hit that one a couple of times. Variance is a fickle mistress, and
I mean, what I would say is you're right that the fiber optic cable would not be electrically conductive, so that gives you some isolation between the projector and the receiver. But if this lightning strike comes, it's going to fry the chips in that fiber optic cable, and now you got to replace a 35-foot fiber optic cable, because it's going to blow the chips inside of the HDMI cable.
Yeah. For sure.
Now, to that end, if that's what you want to do, I wanted to mention a cool product that Monoprice is selling now, because we've talked about how pulling HDMI cables through conduit can be a problem, not because of the cable itself, but because the connectors on the ends are kind of big, and if you have any bends in your in-wall conduit, it can be tough to pull them through there. Well, Monoprice it's only on their fiber optic one, but they have one where they use the HDMI mini connector, and then they just give you mini to full-size adapters on either end. So that gives you a much smaller connector that you can then pull through a conduit, and then you just attach the adapter on the end of it. So that's a great little idea. Kind of expensive, though.
Yeah, well. All right. Corey on Facebook. Corey is cutting the cord, but he still wants to record live over-the-air TV. He has an HD Home Run Network TV tuner, and he got an NVIDIA Shield with an external hard drive to run Plex, and uses Plex DVR for recording the TV signal. The Shield is connected directly to the TV in his living room, and that's working great. Now he would like to be able to send those Plex DVR recordings and live TV signal to his home theater setup in his garage and anywhere else in the house via Wi-Fi. He already owns a Fire TV stick. Will that do well enough, or should he buy another streaming box of some sort to make sure he always gets a high-quality signal? I, sir, have no idea.
Well, I wouldn't buy anything ahead of time. I would certainly give the Fire TV stick a try.
I mean, if you've got it, that is always the first thing you do.
Yeah. Now, it does connect via Wi-Fi. I don't know how good your Wi-Fi signal is in your garage. Some people's it's great. Some people's it's super weak. So I don't know. But if you've got a decent Wi-Fi signal, the only thing I would recommend, and this would be for pretty much anybody who's trying to send things from their Plex server around their house via Wi-Fi, not in the Plex server settings, but in each individual Plex player's settings, there will always be options to activate two things that they call direct stream and direct play. Now, direct stream means that whatever the original signal is, the Plex server is going to send that all the time. And direct play is when it says, okay, I, the player, can natively decode the signal you're trying to send, so send it to me. Or I, the player, cannot natively decode, so send me something that I can play. Whereas direct stream will it'll send the original signal no matter what. Turn both of those off in all of your players, because by turning both of those off, your Plex server will now transcode whatever it is sending out to the players to a signal it knows the player will always be able to play well. Now, it might down the resolution a little bit. It might compress it a bit to fit through your Wi-Fi signal. It might transcode it from one format into another, but it works. It works when you're not even at your house and you're accessing it remotely via the internet. It works. So the Plex server does a really good job of that, and the NVIDIA Shield is a fantastic Plex server at transcoding. So I would highly recommend doing that, and I'll bet your signal will look great. All
right. Was that the question? That was the whole thing, right? Because I zoned out there for a second. Damien, we have time for this? Yeah. Damien was trying to follow our advice of getting very familiar with a few specific songs and audio tracks so that he can use them when auditioning speakers on and other audio equipment. Years ago, when he ripped his entire CD collection, he did so using a lossy format to save space, and now he wishes he used lossless, but re-ripping everything is just too much of a hassle.
I hear you.
Even with his lossy CD rips, though, he noticed an obvious difference in the song My Joy by Layla James when he happened to play that song using Spotify in his car rather than playing his ripped version. In particular, there was a cymbal crash that just didn't sound right. He blamed it on his car speakers at first. Back home, he tried playing that song through Spotify on his PS3, and it sounded bad, just like it did in his car. His lossy CD rip sounded better. Then he tried the Apple Music version via his Apple TV, and that sounded about the same as his lossy CD rip. And both sounded clearly better than Spotify via his PS3. Then he tried using Spotify Connect on his phone, and it landed somewhere in between. So with all this confusion, he busted out the original CD, played that, and noticed some nuances that he had never, ever noticed before. And now he's questioning whether he knows the song as well as he thought. So his final comparison was to sign up for a free trial of Tidal. They claimed their streaming CD quality found the user interface to be a total pain. There were long lag times between hitting play and when the music actually started. But once it was finally playing, Tidal did not sound identical to a CD. It sounded identical to the Apple Music streaming version. So bottom line, what is he supposed to use so that he can compare different speakers during auditions? Now he's worried that he wasn't giving some speakers a fair shake because maybe it was the source that was to blame, not the speakers themselves. He's been taking his lossy CD rips stored on his phone, but now he knows that the original CD sounds a bit better. His lossy version basically sounds the same as Apple Music streaming or Apple Music streaming or Tidal, and the Spotify version can sound different depending on which device is doing the streaming. So how can he restore his confidence and know that he's giving speakers a fair chance when he auditions them? Dude, why did you ever use this lossy version is the real question.
To save space. I mean, he ripped all his CDs. He ripped them to, I don't know if it was MP3s or AZ.
I'm not accepting that. I'm not accepting that because he's not using his entire CD collection. He's using a select number of songs that he's become familiar with. So what you should have done and what you should do now is you should re-rip those particular tracks into lossless versions. Yeah. And then you should also take the CDs with you. I mean, I have, and it's right back there. I just found it the other day. I have a small case. It's big. It looks, it holds probably, 30 CDs or whatever. That I take with me. Now I have all that stuff on, a number of different devices, including my phone, and I could plug things in, but 90% of the time, these guys especially the high-end shops, they're like, okay, I would like to play this music off this USB. They're like, US what? What is this?
Such a new technology.
How would we play that in here? What would we connect it to? Our computer? You want to listen to our computer speakers? Like, are you being purposefully obtuse? Because I feel like you're being but anywho, the reality is that you need to bring the discs with you as well. So yes, you should have re-ripped the particular tracks. In fact, this is what I recommend you do: make a CD.
Right.
Make a single CD that has 5 or 6 tracks, one that highlights individual aspects of speakers, and then listen to that a whole bunch. You can listen to it in your car, you can listen to it wherever, and then that you can then keep that on your phone as well in some sort of lossless format if your phone can support it.
I mean, I understand, like, if, like me, you've stored all your physical discs in a locker somewhere, it's a hassle. You got to go dig them out and get back the original thing. But I mean, you've discovered certainly, yes, Spotify definitely changes depending on what device you're listening on, and it changes depending on your internet connection at the time as well.
It does.
So how can you restore your confidence that you're giving the speakers a fair shake? You pretty much got to start with the original lossless quality of the audio, and then the audio quality isn't to blame.
Right.
You know what that's doing. And
the source too does make a difference because he's talking about all these different things. He's talking about his phone. He's talking about his computer. He's talking about the CD. I'm like, I'm
betting when he was playing Spotify in his car, that was probably off his phone via a Bluetooth connection.
Right.
So you got Bluetooth to deal with in that scenario too. Yeah.
Right. And then he's not using the same speakers every single time either. It didn't sound like he was taking headphones and plugging it into each one of these things, other than the car, obviously.
No,
it sounded like he was like
Pioneer speakers at home. He had his car speakers in his car.
At some point, he was using the headphones, so it sounded like so. Yeah, you're you're definitely adding too many confounding variables to your test.
Yes,
so
there are many variables here.
the first thing you need to do is just get a lossless rip on a device that you know has a good output. And your phone might not be it, dude. I hate to break it to you. Your headphone output on your thing might not be that great. Bluetooth, it is not good enough. You know, unless you've got the whatever it's called. What's the high-end Bluetooth it's called? I've forgotten. It has been a long time.
aptX?
aptX, yeah, it's supposed to be CD quality.
New version of aptX as well. That's like even better, whatever it is.
Even better than CD quality. Whole things. That's what we needed. But yeah, so you could do what other people have done on this podcast, and you could buy a specific device whose job it is for you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Like one of the FiO players.
Right. Where you know it has a good output, and then you can just say, I just want to plug this red and white cable in, you know, that goes to the output of this thing into your device, and then I will control it, which would be fine.
Yeah. Whenever you're doing your audition, you want there to be one variable, and you want that variable to be the speakers.
That's right.
That would be the ideal.
It's never going to be the case because you're always going to be
different rooms.
dealing with different rooms and different electronics too.
Yeah.
So there's that. And you never know, especially if you're listening to high-end stuff, what those electronics are going to do. So the safe bet, either have a device that has the stuff on it and you trust, or just bring the CDs with you.
Yeah.
And that's really what a CD with a bunch of lossless rips. All right, I think we have time for this last one, and then we're done.
Yes.
Ryan just finished the framing for his basement home theater, and he's just about to pre-wire everything, so he wasn't really at the gear buying stage of things yet, but he knows he will be using his Ascend CMT 340 SE speakers, and he knows he wants in-ceiling speakers for Atmos. So he's wondering if we think he should pounce on a clearance deal at Best Buy. They're selling off some Sonos 6.5-inch in-ceiling speakers that for $150 a pair that normally retail for $600. Is that a good enough deal that we think he should just buy them? Dude, the outdoor speaker ones are like $50 a pop. So
$100 a pair, a little bit less expensive.
So,
but
yeah, it's $50 a pop. That's what I just said. $50 each. So, I mean, these are Atmos speakers, right? So
these are going to be Atmos. They're going to be in the ceiling.
I don't know that I would care that much. To be honest with
I mean, what I will say is that David Fabricant himself recommends Sonos's in-ceiling speakers to match with the SE series speakers that Ascend makes. So you can't get better than a recommendation from the founder and designer of the speakers himself. He's like, these are the ones I would recommend that you use. And this is a good price. I mean, if you got them, I'd be like, hey, you got a good deal on some Sonos in-ceiling speakers that are going to match with your Ascend.
You really need to spend. You don't need to spend this $50. That's what I think.
It's not necessary.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't be mad at you for buying them. And I also wouldn't be mad at you for going, I'm going to save $50 a pair and get the outdoor speaker deeper ones. Either way, I'm not mad.
Yeah. He's Canadian. He's never mad. He got mad one time. It was awesome. Oh, actually, he got mad one time on the podcast too. Uh-huh. That was an amazing day. Whew. Clint, just thinking about it. Ryan needs a 50-foot in-wall HDMI run. He's heard us recommend their mono-price fiber optic HDMI cables, but the regular slim run AV HDR fiber optic HDMI cable that sells for $107 for 50 feet only says it has VW1 fire rating. They offer a CMP rated slim run fiber optic cable that's $230 for 50 feet. So an extra $60. That's a lot. Mm-hmm. Is there a less expensive option that will be reliable, as future-proof as possible, and have sufficient rating for in-wall installation?
Yes, that VW1 rating is a weird one because it's only for vertically run cables.
So you can run 50 feet straight up? Where is this thing getting run?
I have no idea why that's a rating, so that's weird. And then the CMP is plenum. That's what the P is for in there. That's for you're running it inside of something that actually pumps breathable air, so it has to have very non-toxic gases if it catches on fire. You don't need either of those. You're looking for a CL2 reading. And so 50 feet is right about the cutoff for where I would use a regular active HDMI cable.
Okay.
And so Monoprice's dynamic view, the 50-footer is $65, and that has CL2 rating. So that's the one I would go for, because you don't need to go fiber optic here.
Yeah.
The dynamic view is active. It's got the chips built in, the power chip built in. $65, clearly less expensive, and it has the correct in-wall rating. Unless you actually are running this inside a plenum, in which case you need the plenum rating. But that's not what he said. He said in-wall, not in a plenum. Now, Blue Jeans cable, they just started selling, they're calling it their Series 3. So that's their active HDMI cables. Again, got the power chips built in, 18 gigabits per second. Their 50-footer is $85, so it's a little bit more expensive than the mono price. I have never known Blue Jeans cable to sell any cables that are not in-wall rated, but they haven't put all the specs about Series 3 up there yet, so they haven't said whether it is. So I would just give them a call, because they're very responsive. So just give them a call, say, hey, those new Series 3 active HDMI cables, are they in-wall rated? And I'm betting they probably are, but best to just double check. Yeah, so either of those is what I go for. Much less expensive, got the proper CL2 rating from that dynamic view from Monoprice for sure.
Do we remember why Monster gave them the letter, the suit they were going to?
Yes, that was for their tartan cables, and they sued them over a thing called trade dress, which is they said, hey, your component cables that have red, green, and blue plugs on them, those look like our Monster cables, and we're suing you for that.
Oh, they said they were going to, so yeah. And
then Kurt Denke, who used to be a lawyer before he started Blue Jeans Cable, said, oh, I'm going to write a letter for this. And then Monster Cable slithered away.
He took his hands and he cracked all his knuckles and he stretched his back.
Because he's like, guess what? You can't extort me on legal fees because I can represent myself.
That's right. All right. So that's the podcast for this week. What do we got as far as leftover? Because we
got quite a few left over here. We've got Tom. Yeah, we had 22 questions on the list here, dude.
Oh, whatever.
Yeah, we had Tom, we had Michael W, Sean W. Sean W's question is interesting. I'm keen to get to that one. Chris P, who wrote to me on Twitter, Rob M, Patrick P, Heath B, and then Dre. Remember Dre we were talking about last week with the building the room in his basement there out of his townhouse. He wrote back with some details, and he'll have further questions. So I just want to let Dre know that we did get your email there. So we'll talk about it.
All right. Thank our listeners of the week. Thank our patrons over at Patreon, our 65 patrons, including Brandon and Patrick.
Yeah, Brandon, Patrick, thank you very much for being patrons. Thanks so much to the other 63 patrons who are helping us out over there at patreon.com/AVRant Podcast. And we haven't had any one-time donations for the past couple of weeks, but just want to mention, if you come to avrant.com, over on the right-hand side, there is a support the podcast button, and that just takes you to PayPal. You do not have to have a PayPal account. You can just use a credit card if you want to, or of course you can use your PayPal account to give us a one-time donation if you would like.
That's right. All right, this is AV Rant Podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. To get your question answered, all you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. All right, and in the end, though, that BenQ is pretty awesome. I was pretty happy with that thing, man.
And sad to see it go.
I was very sad to see it. And it's a sexy little set too. You know, it had like a kind of a swoosh back on the way that the stand was. Mm-hmm. It was very nice, very interesting, and it had It's so big. I was so close to it.
Well, you'll just have to get like a 77-inch OLED, and then you'll forget all about the 32-inch BenQ.
I don't know. It's my first 4K. I'll never have a first 4K again. I just realized I never plugged the Ethernet cable into this computer, so we've been Wi-Fi this whole time.
We made it.
For AV Rant, I'm Tom Andry.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.